just an after workout quickie. Lexi just suggested we did that Chloe Ting thing. So I did that with her. It is mildly humiliating, working out next to my sister. But not having a mirror in front of me and just like going with it, not really having a choice, it's good. And brought two things to mind. One, how self-conscious I feel in a gym, how self-conscious I felt at boarding school in like workout classes, and how much of a self-fulfilling prophecy I think that does become. I always think, like, a thought I always come back to in moments of clarity. It's like working out in the dark, so you're not like aware of yourself, you're just letting your body like, you know, express without being so self-aware. And so yeah, I mean, the other thing is the difference between habits and knocking the world around you because you don't have the right habits, and fundamental problems with the world around you. So my best friend comes to mind, and then Mark's. So Jess is my best friend, and she is an athlete. She plays tennis for an American university, and she can like run for frickin' hours if she needs to. She can run up 100 flights of stairs, like she can do whatever. And it would be very easy for me to knock that tennis team, for example, because I'm not able to do that. So it's easy for me to stand there and be like, well, I'm not able to, so I'm just going to knock the system, right? And if the habits that are being built are ones that therefore become beneficial to the individual and society at large, it makes sense to me to build those habits, like looking after your body as a vessel, as a complex organism, and giving it the nourishment and time and affection that it needs. I can't really flaw, it's just that sometimes my head doesn't want to do it or doesn't want to do it in certain ways. However, where Marx then comes into this little equation is, while it might be true that back in the day there were some people who were better workers than others in a factory, and if you were a good worker in a factory you might not complain that much because you felt like you were good at your job and you were getting it done. But for someone who wasn't as good, they might, you know, start feeling depressed and not really knowing what was wrong with them, like why weren't they enjoying their work. And Marx comes along and he talks about the idea of alienation. And he explains that what happened here was you've gone from being someone who created a whole product on your own from start to finish and got the satisfaction of handing it over to an a customer. You know, you might have made a whole dress yourself, or you might have baked a cake, or whatever it was that you did back in the day. And now every task is being compartmentalized up into parts. So you're not getting to express your creativity, which is something which he and I both agree is, you know, a fundamental part of being a human, and instead you are becoming a cog in a chain. So some people aren't as good at that as others, and that's not to say that obviously it's easier to be good at life, obviously it's easier to be adaptable to the world that you live in and the society that you function in, and the answers and the advice that you will get from people if you're not is, you know, take up running, start meditating, get a job, be disciplined, etc, etc, etc. And I can't argue with that. I can't argue with the fact that if you want to adapt to live in this day and age, those are the things you've got to do. There is no escaping those horizons, and that there's just truisms in all of that. However, saying that, that's not to say that there isn't sort of a new unwritten or being alluded to book of the current problems that we face as an evolution of what Marx was talking about, and a revolution which didn't exactly work in practice, communism, and that there isn't something fundamentally flawed which makes life such hard work that we are constantly having to fight against a current to stay afloat, as opposed to it being a flow, as opposed to it being an enjoyable experience. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be hardships and that we shouldn't have to push ourselves, but I think that there are different ways of doing that, and different kinds of pain that we endure, and some are much more bearable than others. And I cannot emphasize enough how much it comes down to mentality and down to your state of mind, and that's not something I think you can necessarily change, but I'm just saying that this whole contrast thing of here versus there, us versus them, for me it was home versus away. And when I decided to stay away, something literally switched in my mind, and when things went wrong, for example, falling off my bike and hurting my wrist, or getting a UTI, or missing a flight, or stress, these kind of things, I could not escape the underpinning voice in my head saying, there is nowhere I'd rather be. And it just stayed with me for that trip. And now that underlying pinning voice is, what's the point? And I don't know exactly why that changed, but that is now my underpinning narrative. And I think knowing that is the start of something. It was either Einstein or Newton that said, know your limits and then you can defy them. And I think what I'm kind of playing at is like, know your limits and then you can manipulate them and manipulate yourself into ways of behavior that make life more bearable. Like, I know that I have played so many mind games with myself that going for a run is not something that's just going to happen by me putting on shoes and going. But I could probably make some sort of ritual out of going into the bathroom or going into my room, turning off all the lights and doing some sort of workout in a fun way every day for a week, for example. And I think that if I made myself believe that it was fun and made myself believe it was something I wanted to do, and I built up some strength, who knows, maybe next week a run won't sound so daunting. I'm not actually going to commit anything to this. I'm going to have a shower now. And I know that I've been very tangential in this vlog, but I'm just digesting what just happened, which was that I did a workout and I had some thoughts about habits and what would you call them? Habits and actual like problems, you could say. Or that everything is a habit if you think about it. Like Sheldrake argues that like the laws of nature aren't fixed because laws are an anthropocentric notion, but instead maybe more like habits, and they are evolving, as are we. And we have the reflective power to observe our own habits. And I have a habit of, when I get very anxious, my brain protects me or deals with the situation by asking what the point is of life. And I also have a habit of gravitating towards my family and clinging to them, or reaching out to people looking for solace and answers that they do not have for me. And these are good things to know. And I repeat, and I will continue to repeat, I am doing this for myself, but also out of a genuine curiosity of what someone else would say if they were doing this. And I think the only time you really get to know someone in this kind of intimate way is when you love them and you have these kind of conversations. Maybe it's pillow talk, maybe it's a long distance phone call, whatever, and yeah, this subconscious flow comes out. So it would be cool if anyone else does this. I could not be more excited to see it, and I might even make a separate introductory appeal video to this kind of communication. Peace.